Got it. Well, welcome everybody. Boy, March, geez, 21st, 2024, for those of you that are not on live, and we'll get the recording later. This is Daniel's Downloads for, March 21st. And we're going to talk about ISO and quality control, and we're going to talk about glandular therapy. So I always got to start out in the beginning. Statements made in this presentation are not meant to treat, cure, or diagnose a disease. I think I have some great silver bullets to share with you all today. As always, I'm very appreciative to have you here, to have you take the time to listen in. I'm very honored. And as I've always said, I've really never had an original idea I like to share. Yesterday, talking to a doctor, I'll share the silver bullet that she shared with me. We talked about in our last Daniel's Downloads about our Dismuzyme tablets and Dismuzyme granules and SOD and catalase. And she said, Daniel, I'm having huge success with mast cell activation using Dismuzyme tablets. Now, I know I've gotten a lot of calls from many of you about mast cell activation, and we've talked about other pathways. But there's the silver bullet of the day from being out in the field from a doctor yesterday is mast cell activation. She's using Dismuzyme plus tablets, which is the high SOD and catalase. So let's dive into the laboratory end of things. I want to show you some really cool things that Biotics Research does that maybe as we talk about this, think of asking your other suppliers what they're doing, okay? Whoop, forgot about this slide. First off, Epic. We've talked about it, October 4th through 6th, 2024. You see that massive plant that we showed you in the beginning at Biotics Research. So we will be in Sugar Land, Texas at a beautiful hotel. We have several wonderful speakers, 2 on cardiology, 2 on GI health, and 2 on hormones. So I am going to send that link out to that conference so you can see all the details in the follow-up email with the recording of today's lecture. So raising the bar, quality control and manufacturing. What does Biotics do that maybe not everybody else is doing? You're going to see some shocking slides. A little bit of this for the people that are the regulars. This goes back to all the way back to December 2022. We've covered a little bit of this, but I appreciate the newcomers. This will be pretty powerful, I think. First off, we are now and have been for a while an ISO certified lab. That's a little glitch in the text right there. But here's Biotics Research. Companies that produce raw materials and have an ISO certified lab are FDA inspected. We get inspected by the pharmaceutical division of the FDA and maintain a GMP certified manufacturing facility. This is not to talk bad about anybody. This is, again, if I was a practitioner treating clients, treating patients, these are what things I want to ask my suppliers, okay? So be aware, and we're not going to name names, that steps 1, 2, and 3, companies that private label, or companies that use contract manufacturers for their production. So they have really no quality control, quality assurance in their own hands. Companies that do manufacture but do not have their own laboratory. There are a lot of 1, 2, 3s in the professional arena. Many of these 1, 2, 3s have been bought out by investment groups or pharmaceutical groups. So it is a buyer beware industry no matter where you go. So what's ISO Certified Lab? An international organization of standardization. It was not an easy process. We have a massive laboratory, and now it's kind of its own entity because of this ISO certification. We could look at anybody's products and certify that product. That's not what we're going to do. We're here to certify our own products, to assure you that what's on the label is in the bottle, and to assure you that when we put an expiration date on the bottom of that bottle, that you have 100% potency to that expiration date. So the ISO produces standards that help improve and ensure quality, efficiency, consistency, and safety operations, products, and services. You'll see what I mean by that. So what do we do at Biotics? And many of you know this, but every time we bring in an ingredient, we may be using this supplier, let's just say for 45 years. We're a 48-year-old company now. But we never trust the certificate of analysis from that supplier. The product, the ingredient always goes into our laboratory to demonstrate identity of purity, composition, strength, safety, stability. also to ensure the potency, safety, and consistency of products available to the consumer. So the end product is tested as well. So the ingredient comes in the door, goes to our laboratory, goes through the whole laboratory process, and I'll show you some of that. And then it goes to production, and then it goes back to the lab post-production before it goes back into the bottle. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. So here's the lab, just a small piece of the laboratory, but it is legit. We are there. But things we do, testing for identity and purity, you will see, look at thin layer chromatography plates for compounds. We'll test for cysteine. When we buy cysteine, is it really cysteine? Is it leucine? Is it aspartic acid? Is it deoxyribose? These are the things we're doing on a very regular basis with every batch. Even the botanicals, they are fingerprinted by TLC. So here's your green tea, your turmeric. We're going to show you something really cool on turmeric. Osha root, chlorella. We test it all. So here's a really interesting result. So we bought what we thought was trans resveratrol. Pretty expensive ingredient. It went into our laboratory. No spot detected for trans resveratrol. What did we do with that batch? Now, the certificate of analysis said, here's your trans resveratrol. But again, we don't ever rely on that. It goes into our laboratory. So it didn't spec out. We rejected that material and replaced by the supplier after their own investigation. Here's the letter. I'd like to offer my formal apology to Biotics Research. We received 25 kilograms of resveratrol back and figured out why the material did not match the C of A. It was green tea. So one of the questions you want to ask your suppliers is, how are they verifying material? You know, we could talk about the big box stores. We could talk about the little corner health food stores. No disrespect. But when you're doing the work you're doing, the laboratory analysis, all the work you're doing for these people to get them better, I think you want to be assured that you're giving them the right stuff. So we do high performance liquid chromatography analysis, HPLC, a lot of our nutrients. What are we looking for? Here again, I love these slides because it's a reminder of the industry, of what potentially could be out there. So here's an extract of St. John's wort, high quality. Here's your high spike in hyperifluorin. I almost say that correctly. But look at all the other flavonoids. Here's your rutin. These are all what you're looking for. We botanically map this so we know what to look for every time. But check this out. So take a visual picture of these spikes. High quality St. John's wort. Look what's out there, what we've tested. Low quality St. John's wort. You're not seeing your spikes right in this area or over here. Look at your rutin, way low. What's happening here? What we're seeing in our industry is companies, suppliers are spiking products with quercetin. So the flavonoid content is high, but not high in the active component. So your client, your patient comes to you and says, I've done St. John's. I bought it at XYZ, corner store, and it didn't work for me. Well, why it didn't work for them is because of this. There's no active components. This is why I assure you, we do this on all of our ingredients. So what you're getting is a high quality active product. Another one, and many of you have heard this, but I've got to reiterate this because this is shocking to me. We test for residual solvents in our own laboratory. You have class 1, 2, and 3 solvents. Solvents that should be avoided, benzene, carbon tetrachloride. These are potentially cancer-causing solvents. In turmeric root standardization, a class 1 solvent is used to extract curcumin from turmeric. The allowable USP limit is 5 parts per million. But what we found was 139 parts per million in a batch. Ask your company who you're buying curcumin from, are they evaluating that raw material for residual solvents? That decision by Biotics Research was to reject that material because here you're giving curcumin. A lot of literature out there as an anti-inflammatory. Many are using it in immune system issues. but now you're giving them a potential solvent that is not healthy for the immune system. I'm being very choice with my words here, but not something you want to give your clients or your patients. So I wanted to give you a little bit of taste. I mean, we could talk for another hour and show you a ton more slides on quality control, quality assurance at Biotics Research. But I wanted to take part 2 into glandular therapy and what makes us, again, why Biotics, a very unique process. I'll share with you, with the EPIC conference happening in October, we have 300 open seats. We have a 100 open seats for tours of our facility in 3 different tours, I should say, yes. And so you'd have to come in a day early, get the Friday morning tour, and then Friday afternoon will be lectures. And Saturday will be lectures, and Sunday morning will be lectures, and you can fly home Sunday afternoon. But Friday morning, there's open to 100 people. You can get a tour of Biotics Research. The reason I say that is, with glandular therapy, my last tour, I was out there a while ago, you will see at Biotics Research, if they're doing glands, they are hand processing this material. They are hand defatting this material in our facility. We are not using hexanes or other solvents to defat the material. So our sources, where do we source our glandulars from? The organ and glandular tissues from Biotics Research are harvested from animals from BSE-free countries, collected and harvested under USDA inspection. Okay. Most of the Biotics Research glands products incorporate tissues from newborns, neonates. Now, what I assure you here, these are going to be discarded animals. Okay, so we're not taking little ones and just utilizing them for a gland here or a gland there. I want to be very clear about that. They are harvested at specific facilities for Biotics to ensure the quality. And I'm going to show you the difference between an adult tissue and a neonatal tissue. I'm going to give you some silver bullets of application of many of these glandular products. So sources, tissues from newborns, think of this, possess high anabolic activity and have had minimal exposure to environmental stressors. They're not exposed to the environment, you know, like we're exposed, most of us here, to the Phoenix pollution. These animals have not had that experience yet. Atrophy, fatty infiltration, tissue degeneration, and the accumulation of oxidative waste products called lipofuscin are not seen in tissues of newborns. We're going to show side-by-side slides. So here's what the competitors are doing. And again, ask your suppliers, where are they getting the material from? Do they know how it's being processed? The usual sources of most commercially available glandular products are collected from different cattle carcasses in various ages, obtained from numerous slaughterhouses. They have no idea the age or where the animal came from. These tissues are pooled and then processed with resulting powder preparations sold to manufacturers. So they're just buying a drum of material, no idea the health or the source of the animal. Clinicians and consumers then, as I said, have no knowledge or understanding of their sources, the age of the animal used, or the degree of environmental exposure. I am all about glandular therapy. This goes way back historically, glandular therapy. Let's be real. This is your original peptide therapy. We're all becoming very familiar with peptides. This is the original peptide therapy. If you look at a gland and what it supplies, it is a potent form of nutrition. So let's look at the glandular therapy concept. Pure hormones are to glandular therapy as pure sugars to nutritional therapy. I've said this before, and I am not against bioidentical hormone therapy, not at all. But I actually met with a naturopath a couple of weeks ago, and she goes, you know, before I go there, I really like to build the system that's totally depleted. You know, a lot of this hormonal depletion is stress, adrenal dysfunction, pituitary dysfunction. So If we go back again to the basic building blocks, and glandular therapy really is, and look at, as we talked about before, adrenal stress. There are raisins on people's kidneys nowadays from stress. And so they can't get off the couch. They're totally fatigued. They're high stress cortisol people. I mean, peeling the layer of onion of their health, let's go back to the building blocks and support those glandular systems. As we said, sugar supplies one necessary nutrient, but in a form that is unnecessarily refined and concentrated. But the glands don't do that. The glands, as a combination, and again, many of you are wondering, well, Daniel, does your thyroid product have a lot of hormone, or does your adrenal product have a lot of hormone? No. We have to assay for certain levels of hormone so it can be sold over the counter. So why does it work? The body's innate ability to do this with large protein molecules, stained and radioactive tag cells show accumulation at the target tissues. You put a radioactive isotope on an adrenal tissue, it will show up in the adrenal gland to feed that gland. For years we've used thyroid glandular in the market for thyroid. It works phenomenally well. A traumatized gland shows more rapid uptake than the normal gland. Here it is right here. Damaged thyroid cells showed accelerated regeneration when treated with thyroid cells. It's a food. We talk about whole food products. This is a whole food. So one of my favorites, unknown, we don't use it a lot, is cytosine THY, thymus tissue, a major immune boosting component. What I noted here is it's a non-hormone secreting gland, so it's safe for kids and infants. My son, when he was in daycare and I was out on the road working, he'd get a thymus glandular tablet. I'd powder it up for him when he was really little, when he was going to daycare. Give him an immune system, because these kids are being chronically exposed to stuff.
Thyroid, don't you hear thyroid?
So studies showed Biotics Research thymus was 2 times more active than our competitor product. This was actually a Petri dish lab study. But why? Animal adult tissue thymus is atrophying, where neonatal thymus is very active. So think of that. Adult tissue, not just environmental exposure, not just its age component of all the toxins it's taken up, but the adult thymus is not in full growth mode where a neonatal thymus is. That's why cytosine THY from Biotics Research was found to be twice as active as a competitor. So here's some slides of the thymus tissue. Neonatal thymus shows extensive cortical area dark with the medulla. Look at all that, super clean. Look at this adult tissue. Left side, neonatal tissue. Right side, adult tissue.
You can tell it's all clumped up.
Could I please ask who's ever out there to mute yourself, please? I think it's Dr. Adara. Thank you. So here's the neonatal thymus on the left, adult thymus on the right. Look at all this. Look at all this lipofuscin and oxidative stress. That's just one example we're going to cover. So tissue-specific factors. Orally ingested thymic extracts are known to support many aspects of the immune function in humans, as well as experimental animals. Look at this. The oral use of thymus tissue is probably the best documented glandular use with over 80 references. Thymus, cytosine THY. You have a tough EBV case, a CMV case, a chronically ill person. Their thymus gland is being beat up, and they don't have one that's functioning that great. Support it, feed it with cytosine THY, thymus tissue. Liver extracts, cytosine LV. If you look at our catalog, almost everything, by the way, is under cytozyme, C-Y-T-I, C-Y-T-O, Z-Y-M-E, and then the LV for liver, the AD for adrenal, the KD for kidney. You'll see that right in a few pages of the catalog, okay? But liver extracts induced liver growth, and that regenerating liver produces a factor that stimulates growth in regenerating liver lobes. References are right there. Now, again, I go back to the original statement. I'll be very clear. We are not treating or diagnosing disease, but look at this component of what happens when we take a liver glandular. You know, my two dogs are sitting right below my feet right here. I buy them a lot of glandular products from a butcher in town. You want to know how healthy these dogs are? That's what these animals first go for in the wild. They don't go for some thigh meat. They go for the glands. So the only area where our names don't go into cytosine is in our thyroid arena. We have GTA, GTA forte, and GTA forte 2. These are all porcine thyroid glands, okay? So pig thyroid gland, the most biologically bioidentical component of the human DNA. Used in true hypothyroid cases. The reason I say this is you must be doing lab work to utilize these products. You need to have an elevated TSH to utilize these products. They are potent. You can utilize these products, but if you don't have an elevated TSH, you can push them the other way to hyper. That's how effective these are. And you don't need a lot of it. I personally like the GTA at 5 milligrams per tablet. You can shift a TSH at 1 or 2 BID, so 2 to 4 tablets a day. You will effectively shift a TSH. And then tomorrow I'm recording a podcast on thyroid that will release to all of you soon. All the other components of the thyroid product line we have, but GTA is a primary for hypothyroid. Then you have cytosine PTHPT, pituitary hypothalamus. The hypothalamus produces many protein factors and hormones. Your master hormone regulator, truly. Used for a low TSH. Okay, so here's the caveat to that. That TSH is not driven low by a prescription. This TSH shows up low, and the individual comes to you and says, man, they have all the subjective indications of hypothyroid. They're fatigued, they're moody, they're constipated, outer edges of the eyebrows are disappearing. All these subjective indications of hypothyroid, but their TSH is low. It's because the pituitary is not functioning properly and feeding the thyroid to say, I need you to make T4 and T3 now. Okay, so that's where PTHPT comes into play. I have a note here, postpartum. Learned this 30 years ago from one of my dear mentors, osteopath in Wisconsin. He worked with a lot of postpartum depression. And what happens during the birthing process is the whole huge hormonal cascade that happens. And you can see postpartum right away, 6 months, 2 years later. And he would feed the pituitary gland to give it a reset, wake it up. And often that was a very, very helpful process for the difficult challenge of postpartum depression. You want to talk about what we talked about earlier with hormonal production before we go to the bioidenticals. Look about raising testosterone levels, the whole feedback, this master gland feeding the system, giving signals south to make things happen. Growth, stunted growth in individuals is the pituitary not working right. Adrenals. We all know about them. I said it earlier, they're raisins from stress sitting on top of these kidneys. Studies showed that the adrenal glandules were more effective in the long run than pure synthesized preparations. So, why are we not using this more? You know, right now, I'll be real with you, with today's society and as busy as we are, ADB5, the adrenal glandular I've talked about before, is like M&Ms for me. It gives me energy. I'm a very busy individual, as all of you are as well. I mentioned there was a doctor here, and he still is here, brilliant, brilliant chiropractor, brilliant in nutritional biochemistry. And he wrote an article years ago about women who had weakened adrenals from stressful lifestyles. they did not have a good experience with menopause. Because what's happening? The adrenal glands are trying to take over some of that hormone production as the ovaries shut down. He showed in an article that when we supported those adrenal glands, age 35, age 40, that their experience later in life was much better when they went into that phase of life of menopause. I'm a big proponent of adrenal products. As you see here in this slide, very effective. We have cytosine AD and ADB5. ADB5 is like a little bit stronger. What does it stand for? Adrenal, B5 pantothenic acid. There's some rhodiola in there and other B vitamins. Cytosine AD is just adrenal tissue. Okay? So adrenal exhaustion, can't get off the couch. I'm finding more and more of these people need ADB5 than cytosine AD because ADB5 is strong. But think of these people who are really struggling, postural hypotensives, low blood pressure. You know, they go from sitting to standing, dizzy upon arising. Here's a silver bullet for you for the people who live in this lovely Arizona heat that's going to start cranking up soon. Those of you in New Mexico, gets hot over there too. When we get that heat, what do? We vasodilate to cool off. And we get that fatigue factor, that postural hypotensive factor. Give these people some adrenal glandular then. I've seen this a lot with people who work outside all day. They will feel much better. A lot of other factors, electrolytes and things of that nature are the need as well. But if you feed the adrenal gland a little bit, they will not be so beat up after a long day in the heat. But look at your adrenal glandular here. Here's the neonatal tissue on the left, clearly defined zones of the adrenal gland. You have the zona glandularis, the zona, oh boy, fascicularis, F, the zona reticularis. You have clearly defined divisions of the adrenal gland that produce different hormones. Look at this over here. Here's an arrow. For those of you that aren't on live, here's an arrow pointing to lipofuscin, the pigment of lipofuscin. This is oxidative stress in this gland. No clear definition in this aged adrenal gland. This is a 5-year-old bull. So again, we've got to feed the body where we're so depleted. Spleen. There was a chiropractor here in Arizona, just down the road, actually. Wonderful guy. But all he bought was cytosine SP from me. And I said, why is that all you buy from me? And he goes, Daniel, I'm treating allergies with it. So let's run through potentially why. The spleen represents the largest mass of lymphatic tissue. What does it do? It destroys worn out blood cells and platelets as well as bacteria. So it's cleaning up. It's a purifier. We're all about detoxification. Spleen's cleaning up the system too. Here's a neat little component. The spleen produces tufstin, which enhances the immune system. Maybe this doctor was onto something before I was, for sure. But here it is. For example, tufstin stimulates macrophages and other defense cells to ward off infections. Bovine spleen extracts stimulate immune cells during recovery from radiation exposure. Take those little silver bullets, put them in your arsenal. Because sometimes as practitioners, we get, I get it. We're in a routine. This is our program. But here's sometimes we got to think outside the box. What did we talk about on that class? This is one of those components. An underutilized glandular that many of us really wouldn't know what to do with it. Here's some components from Dr. Charles was his name. Give credit where credit is due. Brilliant man. He was over in Scottsdale, came down from Canada years ago. And all he did was use that cytosine spleen. And he goes, Daniel, I help people with their immune systems. I help them with the allergic response. So here's your spleen again. Bull spleen showing extensive fibrosis. Okay, here's neonatal spleen. I flipped the sides, I apologize. Usually it was the neonatal on the left. Neonatal spleen. Note the high density of nuclei. I have a whole text sheet on this showing these pictures. So maybe I'll send that along. I'll make a note to do that as a review, because it's a really extensive review on these pictures and the details of how we do our glands. All right. We're nicely on time today. Gosh, I'm starting to get the groove after 2 years. So here's my new candy, ADV5 Plus. I was just up at an office, I've mentioned this before, up in North Phoenix, and they're a women's health clinic. And they literally, Laura puts, I would hate to guess how many people she puts on this, but they love it. It's not just if you're totally fatigued and on the couch. Let's just say if you're just living life nowadays with Phoenix traffic or raising a family or running your own business, ADV5 is one that really won't overstimulate you, but you won't be so depleted. I'm hearing a lot of, man, I need that Starbucks at 3. Man, I need that afternoon nap. So in the chat box, get ready for the question. For those of you that are new, Jacqueline's on the chat box. She has the answer already. I'm going to announce the 3 winners because I want to be fair that I actually do that. And everybody gets their product. But you're going to get a bottle, 90 tablets of ADV5. I'm recommending starting with 1 at breakfast and 1 at lunch. So 1 at breakfast, 1 at lunch. You should feel a big difference. All right. First 3 to answer in the chat box get a bottle of ADV5. When looking at the residual solvent in turmeric extract, we found what? How many parts per million of that residual solvent? 5 parts per million, 50 parts per million, or 139 parts per million? Are they answering over there? Okay. I have a couple more slides to share with you, so please don't go. Because I want your feedback on something. I want your feedback on next month's topic. I have 2 offerings for you. And we'll throw that in the chat box too. You good over there? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to offer this right now. So April 25th would be my next class. You have 2 options, and I'd love for you to give me feedback which one you'd like to hear. So please punch it in the chat box. Just put new product updates, because I'll go over cardiolipid, the science behind that formula, and our new gummies for sleep, anxiety, and pain, all the amazing details of those products. Or I had a request from somebody, athletic nutrition for kids and the athlete in you. You know, I'm hearing about all this pickleball. I'm not a pickleball guy, but I'm hearing about it. You heard about my kids in the athletic area and what they do. And I think we need to really support ourselves. I've talked about elite nutrition before. I'm not getting younger. It's what do we do to stay healthy, to be an athlete, a hiker, a biker, a lifter, a golfer, a football player, whatever it is. Because I got to tell you, I see a lot of these kids go to their respective sport already depleted. But share with me in the chat box. Jacqueline will take some notes of what we'll do next, and you'll see the announcement in my email that comes out to you. So Marla, you won the ADV5. Dr. Quinn, you won the ADV5. And Dee Dee, you won the ADV5. I'll have that shipped out from my California warehouse. You'll all get a bottle. I assure you, you're going to like it. So as always, thank you for attending. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I hope I gave you a silver bullet or 2 in that 35-minute window of opportunity. As you know, much of this could be a 2 to 3 hour lecture on each of these topics. But again, I appreciate all of you. And I will stop the recording. You will all get this link for the recording to re-listen, but I'm going to send you some of the other components we talked about. But I will stick around in the chat box to answer any questions. Thank you.